The year was 1777, April 26th. The story of Sybil Ludington and her late-night ride are not dissimilar of that of Paul Revere and William Dawes. Not at all. In fact, the then 16-year-old Sybil's midnight ride will be the focus of this episode of Liberty's Heroes. Sybil Ludington was the eldest of Henry and Abigail Ludington's 12 children and the first to graduate from high school, having been born in 1761. Sybil's family came from humble beginnings as farmers and gristmill proprietors in upstate New York. Prior to her famous ride, Sybil saved her father from capture. But Sybil lit candles around the house and organized her siblings to march in front of the windows in military fashion. This gave the Loyalists the impression that the troops were guarding the house. The Loyalists believed this ruse and later fled. Sybil's father served with the British in the French and Indian War, but that later changed. For in 1773, Henry Ludington declared his devotion for the revolutionary cause that was gaining traction across the United States during a fiery speech. The local militia promoted him to colonel in leadership of the battalion because of his military credentials. He was in charge of organizing, training, and preparing militia in case they were called upon to defend against British attacks. Ludington's land functioned as an important crossroads between Connecticut and Long Island and was particularly vulnerable to British attack. Colonel Ludington's regiment was summoned to the battlefield on the night of April 26, 1777. At this time, he enlisted the help of Sybil. British General William Tyrone launched an attack on Danbury, Connecticut, which was barely 15 miles away, with 2,000 British troops. The Americans were supporting the British in their attempt to seize the cache of muskets and ammunition in Danbury. The British could have taken over had anyone not been aware of it. A rider spent the entire day of April 26th galloping as fast as he could to inform Colonel Ludington to prepare his militia. The rider's horse, on the other hand, was too exhausted to make his way through the surrounding area when he arrived at Ludington Farm. In addition, the rider had no other prior experience with the area. And as a result, the colonel demanded that someone ride along his territory to wake up the militiamen. Sybil Ludington, a 16-year-old high school student, is introduced to this story. She was a skilled rider who was well-versed in the terrain surrounding her family's property, which she exploited. Sybil also knew where all of the farmers lived, which allowed her to enlist the help of the militia. It was only a matter of getting to the men before they left. At the same moment, three things were working against her. One, there were no well-traveled highways back in those days. Two, on her way to each of the farmhouses, Sybil had to escape bandits and outlaws. And lastly, the fact that it was pitch black outside at night further adds to this situation. She grew up on her family's farm in Frederick, New York, which is now known as Kent. She traveled south, making stops at Carmel and Milpitt along the way. Sybil then headed to Milpitt Falls before continuing north to Kent Cliffs and Farmers Mills. Little was told of Ludington's rides. The only record of this event was written by her great-nephew, Lewis S. Patrick, and her father's memoirs, which were published in 1907. She used a stick to prod her horse and to knock on doors. It was said that she also used that stick to fend off a bandit, although no one knows for sure. She returned home, soaked with rain and exhausted, but nearly 400 soldiers were alerted. Danbury had already been sacked and burned before those men could find out about it. But they were able to harass General William Tyrone in his retreat back to Long Island Sound. Despite the burning of Danbury and its stockpile, had Sybil been unsuccessful in her task, things could have been much worse for the Patriots. To put this another way, if the militia had not been told of the Army's approach, a surprise attack along the whole New York coastline could have been conducted. She drove twice as far as Paul Revere on unpaved roads and in pitch darkness to reach her destination. In contrast to Revere, Sybil also was able to escape capture. Revere was also helped by two other horsemen who were in charge of spreading information that the British were on the way to America. Sybil, on the other hand, was solely responsible for her own journey. Colonel Ludington dispatched his daughter out into the countryside to ride to the men and instruct them to arrive at his house by daybreak. And according to him, she was supposed to join them the next morning. Sybil's poise and tenacity allowed her to fulfill her task. She is a forgotten American Revolutionary War heroine who deserves to be remembered in history books. If she hadn't demonstrated such bravery, the American Revolution would not have turned out the way it did. Ludington was congratulated for her heroism by friends and neighbors and also by General George Washington. Sybil Ludington is a true Liberty's hero. My name is Kyle Suggs of The Conservative Take for Red Liberty Media. Here at Red Liberty Media, we are independent constitutional journalists. That means we believe in conserving the values of the Constitution, the Founding Fathers, and the Declaration of Independence. Moreover, we are pro-individual rights, pro-small government, and pro-capitalism. If this is something that you'd like to be a part of, then please consider contributing to our Patreon, link below, patreon.com/Red Liberty Media. With your help, you can help us independent constitutional journalists put out more content just like this video you just saw.